This is a very familiar building to me. When I was here as a freshman, this was our lecture hall, and I sat right back over there where those gentlemen are sitting. Three of my buddies, and we sat back over there, and we made a mess of things most of the time when we came in, sign in for each other and all that kind of stuff that you did back then that I regret now. I can tell you I regret. I met Gail here, and the only difference is all the guys sit on this section, and all the girls had to sit in this section, and the married students were in the middle to keep us apart because we were animals. And I remember going through here all the time, and my second year, somebody told me there's this little girl named Gail Hover. She's from Detroit, Michigan, and you guys would just be great together. The fact is, my roommate, Lloyd McCaskill, was the one that said, you should meet her. And I said, okay, I'm going to meet her. And I started looking for her over here in this section, and I found where she was, and I found out where her mailbox was, and I planned everything to stalk her and to ask her out for a date. And I saw her come through here, and she went back there, headed to the mailbox, and I said, this is my chance, Mark, this is my chance. So I ran back, and I went that direction, and I was right behind her. And you know, guys, what you're thinking, what am I going to say? How am I going to ask her? Is she going to say no? Am I going to be embarrassed? There's people all around. There's people everywhere. But this is my chance. And so I was walking and thinking those things when she decided to do a 180 and go back the other direction. And I was right behind her, ready to tap her on the shoulder, when she turned around and we were face to face. Just right over here. I think she really was impressed at me in my ability to only use vowel sounds and no consonants. No consonants came out of my mouth. And I think the drool on my chin also was impressive. And I asked her for a date, and she said yes. And the rest is history. I want her. This is a special place to me. Baptist Bible College, it always has held a special place in my heart. It did then, and it does now. And when I heard that Mark Milione was going to take the school, Gail and I prayed. We prayed for your name out of all those names because we had heard of his successes. And Baptist Bible College needs that kind of success and to bring us back. But are we okay? Is that me popping? Yeah. Yeah, I'll anyway. Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, is this one on? Okay, can you hear me now? All right. Hey, and I know where you're coming from, but before I get started, I want to introduce myself. I want you to see where I am. I want you to see my people, because there's a group of people that are praying for you today, praying for me today, that whatever I say, however I say it, and how it comes out of my mouth and stumbles over my tongue and my teeth and my lips. And it may not make sense to me. It may not make any sense to somebody else. But God can take the smallest thing and He can make sense of it. And that's what they're praying. Sunrise Church in Clovis, California. I think I've got a picture of our buildings here on the PowerPoint. Yeah, that's it. The bottom picture is our children's ministry building, and that's where we met. And we had a little auditorium in there. We went out and bought 20 acres of land out east of town. We had a feasibility study done. The company came in from Southern California and told us to back that up again, please. Keep it right there. And we built that first building. It's cost so much to build in California, you just can't afford anything. And we built that first building, and it looked small on 20 acres. It was about 4,000 square feet, is all it was. We had an auditorium that would pack in 200. We had two services, and we were jamming that in those two services, and we needed to build another building. And so we invited Rick Blue out. And Rick Blue came out in 2003, and he sat in my office, and we wanted to raise $1 million. And I told you, there's not $1 million in this church. And you looked at me and you said, yes, there is. You obviously don't know your people. And I said, okay. You have a program, right? And he said, yes, I've got a program. And he laid it all out. This is what you do. Here's the sermons you preach. And these are the weeks that you follow, the protocol, these things. Then we have the big banquet. Then we have the ask. And you're going to get $1 million. And I said, no, I'll be happy if I get 300,000 or 400,000. $1 million, it's not here. He said, I'm telling you, you have $1 million in your church. So this is what I told him. You remember what I told you, Rick? I looked across the desk and I said, okay, I'm going to do everything you say. I'm going to preach the sermons you give me. We're going to take this outline and we're going to organize the team. We're going to do everything you say in the timeline that you say to do it in. We're not going to miss a thing. And when we don't raise $1 million, I'm going to blame it on you. Did I say that? Did I? He said, I'll take that challenge. I'll take that challenge. And he did. And on that Sunday, Victory Sunday, he was there. We didn't raise $1 million. We raised $1.15 million to build a building up there that we needed. We moved in there, and we just began to grow. And these are the people. The next slide was a picture of last Christmas. This is this during the Christmas season. I just wanted to see it decorated, the way we decorated. And the other two slides are just slides from the balcony, the crow's nest of our church and how it's growing out in California. And this is our motto: strengthening God's family by strengthening yours. The family unit is the smallest cell of our culture. And if it's not healthy, our culture is not healthy. And where do you think they're attacking today? Where's the devil attacking today? He's attacking the family. He's trying to blur the lines and get you to believe that family is something else that God didn't intend it to be. And the sad thing about it, a lot of Christians are buying into it and saying, yeah, we think a family could be something else than what God ordained. But if we strengthen that family, if we strengthen the family unit and we make it what God wanted that family unit to be, then not only do I have a strong church, I have a strong city, a strong community. We'd have a strong state if we can just do that. Get fathers to know God down in the deepest part of themselves. And that's what I want to talk about this week, in the secret place. And that's why I wrote this book. When I was here a few years back, 68, there was a speaker in chapel just like this, and he pointed at me where I was sitting. And you know, at that time I was chasing Gail, and I would get as close as I could to where she was, so I could at least see her. But he pointed at me, and these are the things he said. He said, "You need to have a life's verse. You need to have a life's verse that directs you and the calling that you have, that you will never forget it." And I chose Psalm 91. What that book is written about, in the secret place. He that dwells, in the secret place shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And there's no less than 18 promises to a person who dwells in the secret place. And when you read them and when you get into them, it's incredible what he promises you when you're in that secret place. And so I did. From that time on, that has been my motto. I've lived my life in the secret place. A lot of people struggle with the will of God. Mark, I've never struggled with the will of God in my life, because God and I meet in that secret place, and he affirms what he's saying to me in that secret place. And I want to tell you where it is. And I want you to read this book. And I want you to do that study. Get a group of people. Get 4 people that you trust. Don't get somebody that's silly. Don't find somebody that just isn't interested in spiritual things. Find those people that are interested in spiritual things. And you get 3 or 4 of you together and go through this study guide. Read this book and find out what the secret place is and how you can use it. It's the most incredible thing that God has ever produced in creation. That secret place where he can be alone with you. Nobody else can be there. My spouse can't go to my secret place. My children can't go to my secret place. My grandchildren, my pastor can't go. My counselor can't go. Nobody can go to my secret place except God and me. And it's out of Satan's reach. It's out of his reach. Satan is not allowed to go into your secret place unless you invite him. The problem is a lot of us have invited him into that secret place, and the way you invite him in is you talk about what's going on in your life, and you let him know the most intimate things that are going on in your heart. That's what happens, and sometimes we do that. I know what we do. We say, you're like this flower here. You want to grow. You want to do something for God that is so great that you just you can't stand it. You've got the fire in your heart, just like President Mark said not just a few minutes ago. You're here, you're on fire, but when you get down into the nitty-gritty of things, you're going to want to quit. But you're doing everything you can. Everything you can. You're saying, you're saying that, there's something deeper than what I have, and I want it. So you've chosen a church, and you think that church will give you the tools, and you have that church pour into you. I'm sorry, there's water. It'll dry. It's just water. You pour it into you. You ask that church to pour into you. You get into Bible studies, and you meet in Bible studies, and you probably give the best answers in the Bible study. You say, well, I think I'm going to teach a Sunday school class because they need it, and so you pour that in. God give me, and you pour more into you, and then you say, well, you know what? I've got to do more than that. I've got to go every time the doors are open because I want God to pour into me. Yeah, I want Him to pour into me, and then and they've got that old-fashioned door knocking, visitation. Yeah, I'm going to go to that too. That I'll pour that into me, and I'll grow. And you get all of that, and you see you're not growing. You still lack, and you don't grow. And you say, "How can I grow, God? How can I grow?" Now, I'm not going to insult your intelligence this morning because I know you know the answer, and I know the answer, and that is what you do is you find a bigger church. Okay. You find a bigger church because in that bigger church, they've got more programs that'll help you grow. And they can pour more into you in this bigger church. They even have a college director who has spiked hair, and he's got tats to be sure you know he has a past. And all of that. And he's just really cool. And I'm going to grow more. And you find out that the bigger church, it doesn't help you either. Because you're pouring in the wrong place. You need soil. You need soil. You don't water flowers. Flowers don't grow from the top. They have to be planted in something deep. And when they're planted in something deep, and then when you take that small church, doesn't matter how big the church is, and you begin to pour into the soil, that's when you grow. That's when you see growth. And most of us, we think we know where that soil is, but it's not really. We think it's in programs. We think it's in a pastor, and pastors are good. We think it's in a youth pastor, and youth pastors are good, but that's not where the growth is. The growth is when you get alone with God. The growth is when you know what your secret place is, and when you know down deep where God can meet with you and you and He alone. I was invited to speak about 20 years ago here, Mark, and it was I think it was Alumni Week or something, and it was a week, and they had a whole bunch of speakers here, and so Gail and I came back, and I was speaking on counseling then, and they asked me to do some counseling, and so back where the Patriot Cafe is, I met down there, and I'm telling you, students were lined up almost up the walk, it seemed, just to talk, to get some counseling. And I sat in one of those booths, and they would come in, and I would talk one at a time with them. Ladies and fellas, sit across the table and talk with them. And this one fella come in. I remember his name. His name is Dan. He sat down with me, and he said, "I don't want to talk right here. Can we talk someplace else?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Where do you want to go?" He said, "Follow me." And so we left the Patriot Cafe. We went up a couple of stairs to where your office is now, where admissions is, and we went up another set of stairs where there was a big lecture room at that time there. I don't know if it's still there. The door was open. We went into that. Dan and I went into that, and I thought we'd sit down. He said no. He took me all the way to the back of that lecture hall, all the way to the back, and I sat in desk facing the door. He sat facing me with his back to the door. And I didn't know what's going on. And he began to tell me a story, and he unfolded a story that was incredibly dark. And he told me that his parents couldn't handle him, and they tried everything. And he said, I've made my parents look like failures. And he said, finally, when they couldn't handle me, they sent me to a boot camp, a military academy. And I've been away from my family the whole time. And he said, when I was in school, when I was in grade school, I was molested by a male teacher. And I've never told my parents, and I've never told any friends. You're the only one I have ever told. You're the first one I've ever told. And he said, I heard you in the classroom, and I'm thinking, maybe you can give me some help. And he said, you know why I'm at BBC? I said, tell me. He said, I'm at BBC because this is the last-ditch effort for somebody to accept me. And maybe if I gave my heart to God, at least he would accept me when nobody else has. I began to talk to Dan about Secret Place and how God, and you know what he had done? He'd invited all kind of junk to come with him in his mind as he moved into the secret place. And he could never get past it because it wasn't just God and him alone. It was God and him and all his stuff. And I can't help but believe that there are those that can never get deep. You can never get into that secret place. You can never deal with God. You always feel he's distant. You don't feel like he's something or somebody that's close to you, that will talk to you intimately, because you've got junk in there. That's what Paul said to the Hebrews in Hebrews chapter 12. He said, seeing that you're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, lay aside the weight that so easily besets you and run with patience. Keeping your eyes toward the author and the finisher of your faith. You know what he told them? He said, number one is, listen to your cheering section. There are people that are cheering you. Dan had people that was cheering him, his mother and dad, but they didn't know. They couldn't get to him. They couldn't make any dent in him because he rejected them. Listen to your cheering section. The second thing is this: dump your garbage. Lay aside every weight that so easily besets you. That thing that you don't want to do, that thing that you wouldn't do if you had the power not to do it, and yet in all of your not wanting to do it, you do it. Lay aside every weight. Dump your garbage. Teen Challenge in Fresno, California had a revival. And outside the doors, they put 55-gallon drums. And they said to all those girls and boys that were in this Teen Challenge meeting, you need to dump your garbage, and we've got your garbage pails out there. And so when you leave today, we want you to dump your garbage. You would not believe what they found in those 55-gallon drums. The garbage that was dumped. You're carrying garbage. If you're human, you're carrying garbage. And you're trying to pour the gospel, whatever it is, you're trying to pour it on top of you, and you're getting nowhere, you're not getting deep. And then he says, the scripture says this, remember that endurance produces assurance. And then keep your eye on the prize, the author and finisher of your faith. And how do you do that? You do it in the secret place. I just want to ask you some questions today. I've got 5 or 10 more minutes. And on the slide, the next slide, I'm going to skip that one. Move to the next one. No, I'm sorry. That's it right there. Go back there. Here's some questions that I'd like for you to consider. The secret place. This is a place where only God and you can go, and He's designed it. It's out of Satan's reach. Do you know Satan can't read your thoughts? Don't attribute to the devil the attributes of God. He's not omnipotent. He's not omniscient. He's not all-knowing. He is in a single body, whatever that is, spiritual body, alone. He can't be everywhere at once. He's not omnipresent. Most of you probably have never encountered Him. You know why we've never encountered Him? We're not important enough. He's at the high seat of government that affects us. But we have encountered His minions, and He's got millions of them. And they're after you, and they never sleep. But they can't get in your secret place. They can't be there with God and you. It's an incredible place. And this week, I want to show you what you can do in there. I used that secret place, and it's the way I made my decisions. Because the devil was not involved in the decisions in my secret place. Now, I want to say to you, most of your prayers will be out loud. Maybe 95% of your prayers are out loud. But there's that small percentage of prayer that should be silent. Only between you and God. The intimacy that God wants with you. And it is in that intimacy that God produces. We're going to read Psalm 91. I hope you'll read it before you come back tomorrow in the chapel, because I'm going to drill down on it tomorrow in the chapel. I hope you'll read it. But in that secret place, God can deal with you, and He did it all through the Bible. I'll show you through the Bible who He dealt with in the secret place. And they never told anybody until they were on the proper stage at the proper time, so only God could get the glory. In the secret place. I want you tonight, I want you to go there. Out of Satan's reach. Out of everybody's reach. And I want you to do business with Him. I want you to talk to Him. God, what is it you want me to do? Ministries will come out of there. Let me say something, and I do not want to disrespect the institution of marriage. And I do not want to disrespect God. So understand what I'm saying here, okay? In the Scriptures, the Lord calls us the bride, and Jesus is the groom. I mean, He's the groom. God's the groom, we're the bride. He puts us into a marriage situation. In fact, there's going to be the marriage supper of the Lamb. You've heard about it. My wife, she lets me say this. We have 3 children. You know, if you see those 3 children, that there's been intimate times where nobody was there but me and her. Because the offspring tell you we've had an intimacy that was none of your business. But you know we did. We have 11 grandchildren. We know that's true of my children too. What offspring do you have from being intimate with God in the secret place? What has He produced in you? What ministry has come out of that? Have you been there enough for Him to be intimate with you? Or has He started some stuff in you and you've committed spiritual abortion? He started a ministry in you and you said, boy, I'm going to do that. I can change the world with that. And then something comes into your life and you give it up, and you abort that God put in your heart to do. Wonder how many times that's happened, Mark. Rick, wonder how many times. But I know it's happened to people. There's somebody the reason I'm here, the reason Gail and I come, because there's one person here. I know there's one person that's going to take this truth, and God's got something in your heart already started in the secret place. It's already there. He's already revealed to you what He wants you to do. It's going to be a world changer. It is. And I want you to carry it out. Let that offspring be born, and then nurture it, and then move with it, and let God use it. It's incredible. It's not pouring stuff into you. It is enriching the soil so that you can grow. And how you enrich that is in that secret place. And the next 2 days, I want to identify it for you. I want us to look at it. You can read the whole book if you want to. It was written for men. Men don't read. It was written, it's only 94 pages in its original version. It came out, I don't know if you're old enough to know the Prayer of Jabez. That book that came out sold 11 million copies. And this book came out right after it with Multnomah. And it was written so that you could get on an airplane, in an hour and a half you could read it, you could pass it on to somebody else. And that's the reason it's only that many pages. I want you to read it, because then when I start talking about it tomorrow, when I start talking about it again on Thursday, that I want you to have a deeper understanding of the words that I'm going to use and the questions I'm going to ask. Ask these questions. Doesn't it make sense that if Satan has spent his millenniums on this earth trying to steal God's glory, that he will busy himself trying to thwart God's purpose in your life? He constantly stands in opposition to the purpose of God. And the last thing he wants for a believer is a fresh discovery of your secret place, or a clear understanding of God's will. Last thing he wants. Would you pray with me? And I want to leave you with that, and I want to leave you with these books. And I hope you'll choose 3 or 4 or 5 people for a study, and you'll sit down, you'll answer these questions. You'll read through that book. And for that one person that I know God has chosen out of this group, I want to